You connected everything to your agent, your calendar and your files and your chat and your ticket system, every integration you could find, and it got worse. Slower on simple things, and every so often reaching, with total confidence, for the wrong one. That is not your setup being broken. The Frontier Lab now publishes the point where its own model starts to slip, and the number is smaller than it sounds. So here is the frame. You do not give an agent tools. You hand it a menu. And nobody orders well from a 200-item menu. Start with what a tool actually is. A tool is not a capability the model has. It is text, a name, a plain language description, and a form saying what arguments it takes. Your application pastes that text into the front of the prompt, ahead of the builder's instructions and ahead of your question, so the menu gets read out in full before you're allowed to speak. The model never sees your code. It sees you're writing about your code, and once a shared connection standard called MCP arrived, adding somebody else's tools became almost free, so menus that held a handful now run to hundreds. Now the bill, and it comes in two parts that everybody blends into one. The first is space. Those definitions sit at the front of every request, whether the tool gets used or not. In one vendor's own worked example, a setup wired to 5 common services eats about 55,000 tokens before the model does anything. Picture a control panel where 5 labeled buttons beat 40 unlabeled ones, and every button nobody presses still takes up panel space. The second cost is the one this episode is about. Given a long menu, the model picks the wrong item. The same vendor prints its own threshold. In their words, the model's ability to pick the right tool degrades once you exceed 30 to 50 available tools. Look at the verb, degrades, not breaks. And this is one company describing its own models. So how good is any model at this to begin with? There is an independent leaderboard for tool calling, run by an academic group rather than a vendor, scoring well over 100 models. The best model on it, at its most recent refresh, sits at about 77.5% overall. The best one. So the strongest tool caller on that board misses more than one time in 5, averaged across every category it is scored on. This is not a solved skill that breaks under load. It is a hard skill that gets harder. Now the honest flag. That leaderboard's realistic section gives a model about 3 tools on average and 37 at the most, so it says nothing about a catalog of 600. Now a line you have read somewhere. Every model performs worse when it is given more than one tool. It circulates everywhere, credited to that leaderboard. It traces to one blog post which pointed at one column of that board, the real user prompts. It was written last year about an older version of the board, so we pulled the current data file. On that column, the post is close. 92 of the 109 models do score lower with a handful of tools than with one, by about 6.5 points across the whole board. Close, but not every. 15 go the other way. Now switch columns. On the curated prompts, the tidy ones researchers write, 103 of those same models score higher, by about 17.5 across the whole board. Same models, same file, and the sign flips with the questions you ask. That flip is the mechanism. On a tidy test, the other dishes are obviously different, so extra tools act as context. On a real request, they overlap, and nobody said which one was meant. Now they are lookalikes. So search your tools instead of showing them all. Somebody measured that in an unreviewed preprint built on one company's deployment. They took a live production assistant with nearly 600 tools, scaled up from about 50 on 3 frontier models from 2 vendors. On under-specified requests, the ones where the user never names the tool they want, the routing score drops 16 to 23 points. Under specified requests only. Then the experiment that matters. They gave the model a perfect shortlist, with the right tool guaranteed to be there among 20 options. Accuracy still fell about 10 points. Perfect retrieval and the hole is still open. They call it the confusion gap. And the same paper carries the other half. Shortlisting by meaning wins back 10 to 11 points at full scale on all 3 models. On real traffic, it recovers as much or more from a lower starting point. So, retrieval recovers most of the loss. It does not close it. Which leaves 4 questions, and only 4. They are how many tools, described how, loaded when, and called how. The published advice on how many is consolidation. Rather than a separate tool for opening a code review, approving it, and merging it, use one tool with an action setting. Fewer and more capable, because it reduces selection ambiguity. A single dish with options beats 5 near identical ones. But fewer is not the goal. Every tool you delete costs the software around it something. A dedicated tool can be held behind a human confirmation, or refuse a write if the file changed since it was read. A command line hands back only an opaque string. So start with the command line for breadth, and promote an action to its own tool when you need to gate it, show it, or run it in parallel. The test is not fewer. The test is that every tool earns its slot. Question 2 is described how, and the answer runs against instinct. The fix for a bloated menu is not shorter descriptions. That same documentation calls detailed descriptions by far the most important factor in tool performance, and asks for 3 or 4 sentences each, covering when to use the tool and when not to. The description is the selection signal, and if a search runs over your tools, it is the index too. Then shape what comes back, because a tool response is pure context spend. Their own illustrative pair trims 1 to about a third of the tokens, while dropping identifiers a later call needed, so the knobs pull in different directions. Description's long, response is short. And for a definition, this task will never touch, the fix is not compressing it. Question 3 is loaded when, and every shipped answer is the same idea. Stop showing the model tools it does not need right now. On one platform, you can mark a tool as deferred, so it stays out of the prompt until the model searches the catalog and pulls back the few that match, which is a waiter instead of a menu. Our last episode showed what that does to the token bill. The newer idea is a skill, a file of instructions the model opens only when the job matches. Its resting price is published by 2 separate primary sources that agree. About 100 tokens, for a name and a short description. And a skill can switch tools off while it runs. So how many tools to show is not a question about your application, it is a question about this task. Question 4 is called how. Instead of calling tools one at a time, with every result landing in its context, the model writes a short script in a sandbox, and the script calls the tools. Only the final answer comes back. Their own example is a budget check across 20 employees, which is 20 round trips through the window against one script that returns only the people who went over. That is an illustration, not a measurement. Where they did measure, on an agent with 75 tools, it cut build input tokens by roughly 38% with no change in accuracy. And on another benchmark, where each turn makes 1 or 2 calls in sequence, they report no change in score and about 8% more cost. It pays when there is a lot to fetch and filter, otherwise it is overhead. Now, the honest limits. Every threshold here belongs to a vendor, a model, and a date. The 30 to 50 is one company describing its own models in mid-2026. And a separate study, still under review, put the line somewhere different for each model it tested. Almost all of that independent work is unreviewed preprints. The leaderboard itself cleared peer review at a major machine learning conference. Almost nothing else here did. Grouping everything into one big tool is standard advice, and nobody has measured whether it just moves the ambiguity from picking a tool to picking a parameter. And the failure people misdiagnose is not the wrong tool at all. On that leaderboard, the top model falls from about 81 to about 58 on multi-turn tasks the moment a required argument is missing. It did not order the wrong dish. It ordered before it knew what was in it. So carry the 4 questions, the count, and whether each tool earns its slot. The description, detailed enough that only the right one matches. The timing, so the model reads a short menu instead of the whole catalog. And the calling, so the machinery stays outside the window and only the answer comes in. When somebody says their agent has 50 connected tools, that is not a specification, it is a menu length. Ask how many are visible when it has to choose. This is episode 2 of Put AI to Work, our season on getting real work out of AI agents, 1 working skill per episode. The full free AI course is on the channel. Subscribe, and the next time an agent reaches for the wrong tool, you will know which of the 4 questions to ask.